Good Friday. Thank you for tuning in to the Gardener's Corner program, a Friday feature here on TV Channel 10, located on Charter Communications Channel 191, and also on WKRX 96.7 FM. My name is Rob Hall. We welcome you into the program that's brought to you today by the Lloyd Granville Agricultural Heritage Association. They're having their annual harvest show in Butner coming up on Friday, September 30th, Saturday, October 1st, and Sunday, October 2nd. We'll tell you more about that. We'll also share some information with you from Sandling Golf Cars and T.G. Brooks Company. They are also sponsors of the Gardener's Corner program. Our special guest today is Mr. Paul Westfall of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, where he serves as the director for both Person and Granville counties. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Rob. How are you today?
Doing good. Glad to have you with us.
Glad to be
here. And a little bit cooler today.
Well, it's a little more pleasant. I'd call it pleasant.
Pleasant. Well, I like the way that is. It is certainly more pleasant out today.
Because we've had some really hot weather over the last couple of months, for sure. And one of the things hot weather brings along, we enjoy it and all, but we just haven't had the rainfall we had early in the year. We got all our rain in one clump, seems like.
Right.
And, we ask, sometimes we'd like to have that spread out a little bit more over through the rest of the year too, but we have to take what we get and we deal with it. But we sure could use some rain right now.
We really could. It's extremely dry, and as you and I were talking before the program started, we'll talk a little bit about some livestock, fescue grasses, and things like that. But when Paul was here a couple of weeks ago, we talked about farm ponds, and it was really interesting, and I was, quite surprised about some of the things that can be going on in your pond that you need to be aware of. And Paul, you were telling me that you went out on a farm pond call earlier today.
Yeah, this morning, the person that called in a week ago, and we set an appointment for this morning earlier to go out and take a look at the pond, and did that. And wasn't a real large pond, maybe a little under a half acre of water there, but they had some different types of weeds growing in it, and that was their concern. They had some algae and some little macroalgae they call chara. It's spelled C-H-A-R-A, which actually can be beneficial to fish, but it's usually mixed in with a whole bunch of other stuff and creates a problem.
Right.
Especially if you like to fish in a pond. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. You cast your line out there and then you reel it in, especially if you got using artificial baits, and you bring it up and all you can do is just pull the weeds off, pull the moss and algae off the hooks before you can make your next cast. So that gets pretty old pretty fast. At least it does for me when I go fishing. I don't like to do that. I want to get a fish on the end, not a bunch of weeds.
That's right.
But went out there, and it was interesting because a lot of times our recommendation for weed control is to use a certain herbicide, or we might recommend using the hybrid grass carp like we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Right.
But the folks in this community don't want to use chemicals, and that's fine. That's their personal choice. So the recommendation there to take care of the weeds is, okay, this is going to be mechanical control. And mechanical means exactly what you're thinking it does. It means you're going to have to pull it up or rake it out and just spend a little time and use your own two hands and whatever tools and implements you can do to use to best get rid of those weeds and get them back where they're under control and make the pond look better and make it easier to fish in. So that's also a method. We didn't talk a lot about the mechanical control things, but that's one thing that people can do if they want to. They can use a rake to pull the algae out and just throw it up on the bank and let it dry out, and turn back to soil, if you will, because it will break down.
Right.
It'll go back and be fertilizer for whatever the grasses and things that are around the edge of the pond bank. But you can use of course, a weed eater, knock some weeds down, different things like that. So,
well, Paul, a couple of things that we had talked about, and by the way, if you're tuned into the Gardener's Corner program and if you've got maybe a question that you would like to ask of Paul about a farm pond, you're welcome to give us a call, 336-599-0266. And if Paul cannot answer the question by the information that you provide in the question, he can do a little bit of research and maybe help find the proper answer for you. But if you want to call, you're welcome to.
Sure.
But a couple of things you had mentioned a couple of weeks ago. You said that one test that you all sometimes do is you will take like a white paper plate and put it on a stick and stick it down in the farm pond 18 inches deep, and if you can still see the plate, it means that the water is getting too much light into it.
Yeah,
correct?
light can penetrate it too deeply. I know it's great to see nice clear water and see the bottom, but if light can get to the bottom of a pond, that means it's going to stimulate weed growth
Right.
and vegetative growth in the pond. So for a healthy pond, it's a good idea to use either a dye like we talked about, so that you can't let the sunlight penetrate to the bottom, or in some cases we recommend using a fertilizer to stimulate the plankton growth that we talked about. So plankton's a food source for small fish, and of course the food cycle in a pond is small fish eat the plankton, a bigger fish eats the small fish, a bigger fish eats that fish.
Right.
It goes on until it gets big enough for Rob to go out and catch a big
That's
old
right.
bass or
Yes.
something,
Yes.
so.
Well, and also those of you that maybe have a farm pond, and you did hear correctly that sometimes you do have to put fertilizers in your pond. And the best way to tell what you have is you take a sample of the water in your pond and bring it into the Cooperative Extension Service office, and they can send that sample off, and it's a small charge for the testing of your pond water to see what kind of nutrients and things that it may be lacking. And that is one way you could take a step or two to making your farm pond, we're going to say, a little bit more healthy for the fish and yourself as well. And something else, they have grass eating carp. Did I say that right, Paul?
That's good. Yeah.
And one thing, Paul, did I call you Carl?
No, you did not.
Okay, Paul. So anyway, sorry about that. But anyway, if I
Carl
did.
would get upset if you did that.
And speaking of Carl, I spoke with him last week. But anyway, nevertheless, Paul had said that when you purchase these carp to put in your pond, you need to buy the hybrid grass eating carp, and you need to buy the ones that are large enough to where some of your largemouth bass in the pond, they would be too big for the bass to eat them. And these hybrid carp will not reproduce, and they will eat a lot of the algae and different things. Now
They'll eat a lot of the submerged vegetation and some of the stuff on top of the water, but they're not as. They prefer the submerged grasses
Right.
and weeds.
Now, if someone would be interested in purchasing some of these fish, they could contact
We can point
you,
them in the right direction.
and you
to
could
find
tell them
them.
where they could
Yes.
order them from and things. And I know they have a few fish trucks come through, Person County from time to
They do.
time, and they sell all kinds of fish. And something that is not suggested, and I didn't have any idea of this until Paul made mention of it. Sometimes when people want to stock their pond, they will sometimes go to other ponds and catch fish and bring them in and release them in their pond. And that's not really the best way to do it, because if those fish that you take from other ponds should have any disease, or if the water in those ponds have any disease, all you're doing is transferring it to your own. So you'll be better off to order some fish, and that way you would start everything out with a leveling playing field.
You reduce the risk of introducing something else
Yeah.
that you don't want.
And one other thing that I had never really thought about it, but Paul brought it to light. You know, diseases can also be transmitted from pond to pond from any type of fowl, or even, you know, a turtle or something like that.
Anything that goes from one body to another can carry weeds with it, or it can carry bacteria that you don't want spread around. So there's always possibilities, but what we're trying to do, and with ponds and a lot of other things, is try to just keep things in balance. So that you got a good healthy pond, healthy fish population, not too many weeds out there, because people do enjoy their ponds to be around, for recreational use, or just sit out there and enjoy the calm and quiet, or catch a fish now and then.
That's right. You're exactly right. Well, here it is, pretty much the middle of September, and we'll throw this in. It's an excellent time for you to be fertilizing your cool season grasses, and it's also a good time for you to be planting cool season grasses. And the one reason that it's an excellent time, if you are reseeding your lawn, is it will give the seed a chance to sprout and come up before the leaves start to fall. If you wait until later in the year to reseed your yard, you're going to be fighting a tough battle with leaves falling on the lawn, and that will cause, the seedlings to sometimes not germinate as well. But talking about fescue, and I'm sure a lot of people out there listening has fescue in their lawns, and the grass hadn't been growing, and in a lot of spots the fescue is drying up and turning brown, and that's from the lack
being
of
dry.
water and so hot as well, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, fescue is a cool season grass. It gets above 85 degrees. It's pretty much not going to grow at all. It just goes into dormancy. So what we've got right now, we've got cool season grasses that have gone into dormancy, so they're naturally have just turned brown without all the water. If you've got enough water, they'll kind of stay green, but they won't grow. But we're lacking water right now. So, but you're right, as far as fertilizing lawns, this is a good time of year to go ahead and do that. With a complete fertilizer, I wouldn't put a lot of nitrogen on right now until we get some moisture to release the nitrogen so that plants can use it. If we put nitrogen on right now and we don't have any water to stimulate plant growth, nitrogen is kind of a volatile nutrient, and if it's not used right away, it may volatilize and be lost to the plant. It just go off into the atmosphere.
And that's an expensive loss.
It certainly is if you price fertilizer
That's right, yes.
anywhere. But you mentioned overseeding. It's a good time to start doing that. The seed's going to be there when it gets the right conditions, and then when we get some moisture, it will go ahead and germinate and peg down and start growing. Same thing in pastures. If you need to reseed a pasture, it's a good time to go ahead and do that. Of course, we always recommend taking soil samples. I'm sure Carl mentioned
Oh,
that
yes.
time after time after time, and I'm the same way. The first thing we talk about with new pasture management and managing grasses and legumes is make sure that the soil pH is in the right range for what you want to grow, and check the levels of phosphorus and potassium. That's your macronutrients, the major nutrients. And then we'll get a nitrogen recommendation out there too for optimum growth of the grasses that we're going to be planting, whether it be in the lawn or be out in the pasture for livestock. So That's the first thing we do, but to take a soil sample right now, you might need a hammer and a crowbar to do it.
That's right.
I don't know about the soils where you live, Rob, but all of it I see, I can take a shovel or a soil probe, and I might go down a ½ inch before I
Yeah.
just can't do it anymore without a sledgehammer.
It-
And if
it-
I use a sledgehammer, I ruin my soil probe. So
Yeah.
that's not a good thing.
It is very dry, and it's a slight chance of rain on Sunday. And when I say slight chance, about a 20%, and after that, there's no rain in sight other than that in the 7-day forecast. But with all this being said, when you talk about pasture management, whether you are feeding goats, sheep, cattle, or horses, it's a lot of little things that you can do. And I kind of know this from experience, and I've had people to tell me this. If you have horses and you are grazing, horses are a lot harder on pasture than cows. A cow only has teeth. They don't have top and bottom teeth, where a horse's has teeth on the top and bottom, and a cow's teeth is on the bottom, correct?
Yeah, yes, cows have lower teeth, and they've just got a hard plate on the top, so they push the teeth against that and cut the grass off. So they are a more efficient grazer. Horses, if their teeth are in good shape, do a really good job of eating grass. But if the teeth, every now and then you have to have
Float 'em,
dental care for a horse, float their teeth. So got to take care of that, and call the veterinarian. He'll help you take care of it. But if the teeth get out of alignment, or if they're not don't have the right angle, or they're not sharp enough, the horses may tend to pull the grass up. And with fescue, that's a bunch grass. When you pull a bunch grass up, one tendril doesn't come up, the whole thing does nowadays.
Yes.
So they are a little harder on it. The other thing, horses are a monogastric animal. They don't have 4 stomachs like a cow or a goat does. So most of the forage is processed in a part of the intestine called the cecum, where they're, extract the nutrients out of the grass and legumes that the horses eat. So there's a little difference in utilization there. So
Right.
So cattle can utilize forages a little bit more efficiently, but the horses are set up that they can do very well on grasses too.
Yeah. Well, Paul, what I was leading up to, and this is something that we have just started within the last year or so, we have a pasture drag where every so often we'll take the tractor with the pasture drag on it, and we drag the pasture, and pretty much what we're doing is the manure that's, in the pasture, you're just kind of breaking it up and spreading it around, and this actually serves several purposes. It makes the manure break down faster, and horses will find one area of the pasture or several different areas to where they will use the restroom, to put it, I guess, in a radio friendly way, but they will not graze in that area. And so when you take the pasture drag, and if you keep your manure piles drugged down, it will help it break down a lot quicker. And another thing, by doing so, this can kind of help with insect control and fly control as well.
Yeah, there's 2 schools of thought on that as well.
Oh, it is?
Some people do like to go ahead and drag the patties and spread them out and help them break down a little bit more, but a lot of pasture ecosystems people are saying, well, if we have a good population of dung beetles, they'll help break that down and help control the insects that have larvae in the droppings also. So to me, it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other.
Whatever you prefer.
What it's up to the preference of the farm owner. Some people like to go ahead and get those cow patties spread out, or the horse patties spread out, so that and you're right, animals will refuse to eat around where the patties fall.
Right.
Whether it's a cow or a horse or whatever. You watch, you can see where they are in the pasture. If you just look. So people will spread those out. With using a drag, it doesn't take a lot of fuel, because it doesn't take a big tractor to do that. You
Right.
can do that with your 140
That's
very
right.
easily. So it gets it done. The dung beetles, if you got a good population of those, they'll do a great job, because they'll take the dung and kind of take it off and spread it out around too. But it all works out in the end for the same purpose. I
Yeah.
believe.
Well, I've got a friend of mine up in Castle County. He actually has a little all-terrain vehicle, and he drives through the pasture, and he takes his pitchfork with him and manure fork,
Yeah.
and he actually shovels it up out of the
Really?
pasture,
Huh.
and he puts it in containers, and then he kind of dumps it into a pile, for composting
Composting
purposes.
it that way, yeah.
But Paul, with that being said, as far as helping, maybe control insects and things, it seems that when it's hot and dry, horseflies are extremely bad.
They are very bad right now. I mean, I can drive up somewhere and you can pretty well guarantee a horsefly is going to hit the window of the truck.
Yes.
Then you get out and they're going to be hitting you. So that's just, but yeah, in hot, dry years, it seems like horseflies and deer flies and other biting flies do get worse. And then, unfortunately, that's a pretty hard fly to control. Sometimes I'm making a joke right now, but sometimes the best way to control them is 2 bricks and catch it between them.
Yes, yes.
But they are hard to control. There are some insecticides we can recommend, but don't think they do a very good job against horseflies, because they land, they bite, they fly away. They don't stick around long enough for an insecticide to do much for them. One thing I have found, I know a horse owner over in Granville County that does this. They've got some devices that they've made that are actually attract horse flies, and they've got little pans of soapy water and little pieces of glass angled at a 45-degree angle over those pans of soapy water. Horse flies will fly, hit the glass, drop down into the water, and they can't get out. So that's
Really?
that's kind of a natural way that maybe horse flies can be controlled. And they've got some of these devices available commercially, or people can try to make their own. And I do, if anybody's interested, I do have kind of a plan sketched out for that.
Well, I would like to see that. I sure would, because, they do make, as Paul mentioned, it's different things that you can spray on horses and cattle to help out with fly control. And sometimes you get a little bit better results than others, but the horse flies, they are just really tough, and not only are they tough on horses, if you're around there, they sometimes know how to land on you to where you really can't, touch them
Right
with
between your shoulder
yes,
blades.
they sure do, and they can hurt somewhat. But we need to get a word on for one of our fine supporting sponsors. We'll take a trip down to Butner, and looking forward to this 10th annual Harvest Show sponsored by the Lloyd Granville Agricultural Heritage Association. This year they will be featuring International Harvester, but they'll have something for all ages. This show will be on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, September 30th, October 1st, and October 2nd, and it'll be right there close by John Umstead Hospital. Here's more information from the Lloyd Granville Agricultural Heritage Association. Lloyd Granville Agricultural Heritage Association proudly announces the 10th annual Harvest Show featuring international tractors and equipment. Show dates are Friday, September 30th, noon until 5, Saturday, October 1st, 9 a.m. until 5, and Sunday, October 2nd, 11 a.m. until 4. The show location, the corner of 12th and G Streets in Butner. Visit the website, www.lgaha.com, for updates. You'll enjoy a one-of-a-kind antique tool and homestead display, antique tractors and equipment, a farm shop. Visit Mama's Kitchen Old Time Cooking. They'll have the parade of power, hit and miss engines, vendors, and food available. They will also have a children's play area. Daily admission $5, children 12 and under free. Proceeds to support the scholarship fund. For more information, contact Al Govan at 919-528-1652. The website again, lgaha.com, or call Al Govan at 919-528-1652. It's the 10th Annual Harvest Show, sponsored by Lloyd Granville Agricultural Heritage Association, Friday, September 30th through Sunday, October 2nd. Here we are back on the Gardener's Corner program with Mr. Paul Westfall of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service. The Cooperative Extension Service, their motto is empowering people, providing solutions. And so that's what they do. They are there to help out. Anytime you may have a question with things from livestock, cattle, all the way down to a pressure canner, you know, they have the knowledge and the means to help you get an answer to whatever question and help you solve whatever problem that you may be having. Paul, with it being not officially fall yet, but we're headed
Almost.
into the fall time of the year, is it anything that people, cattle farmers, should be doing right now with their, you know, calves and things like that?
Well, folks with a spring, you know, that have the calves in the springtime, let's say starting February, March, April there, should be getting them ready to wean pretty soon. By wean, I mean that right now they've been getting most of their groceries from Mama.
Right.
And it's an upsetting time for them, but we're trying to get them weaned off their moms, so that they'll be starting to get ready to go to market. Most of the beef farmers around here have what we call a cow-calf operation. They keep the mama cows on the farm all the time and raise a crop of calves, and might pick a few heifers to save back to replace some old cows that just aren't productive, or, you know, getting old, or for one reason or the other need to leave the farm. But most of the calves are sold one way or another. So getting the calves ready to make sure the vaccinations are up to date. If you don't vaccinate for anything else, be sure and vaccinate for blackleg. That in the Clostridiums, there's a 7-way Clostridium vaccination that'll take care of blackleg, malignant edema, and any other clostridial disease. The blackleg bacteria, the Clostridia bacteria is in the soil all over the place. I mean, it's just a naturally occurring thing, and sometimes calves will get that. And I know prices of cattle aren't like they were a year ago,
Right.
but still, if you say you sell a 500-pound calf, and say it's worth $35.40 a pound, that's a pretty nice piece of money.
That's right.
It costs a whole lot less to vaccinate and make sure you don't lose one of those things before you can sell it. So that's a pretty strong recommendation we have, is to make sure you follow the veterinary recommendations as far as vaccinations and other herd health, and make sure those are up to date. When you're taking calves to market and you followed a plan, sometimes you can get a little premium on your calves, you know, for having followed a good health plan and making sure they're ready for the next step of the process of feeding cattle out. You know, so they'll leave here, they'll go to a backgrounded farm, and they'll get up and eventually be in a feedlot somewhere, or they might go back to another farm if the heifer's to be put into that cow herd. So we want to make sure these our animals are well taken care of and following veterinary recommendations, and they're ready to go on to the next stage of their productive life.
Well, you know, when you talk about weaning cattle, it is possible that the mother will wean the calf herself, but it's really tough sometimes, and sometimes it is possible when you will have a young cow or young steer that is almost big as the mother is, still stealing milk from
Right.
the mother. And one bad thing about that is when the mother is still producing milk and it's a calf stealing it from her, it's taking nutrients away from the mother, and in many cases she has been bred back.
Yep, she's probably carrying a calf, ready for the
Yes.
next year's cycle. So she's gestating, and yes, a animal will wean their offspring eventually.
Right.
So it will happen naturally, but it doesn't look right to see a large calf taking
That's
milk
right.
from mama when they ought to be out eating grass themselves. They're certainly big enough and able to do that.
Yeah.
But they're like everything else. We're all opportunists. We're gonna take advantage of what's easiest.
That's right.
Sometimes.
You're
And,
right about
that's
that.
true in the animal kingdom as well as with people.
Yeah. Well, Paul, now, one good thing about when you go ahead and wean your calves, it also helps mama cow start to prepare for the oncoming winter season. Now, I have heard it told a couple of different ways when it comes to weaning calves from the mama cow. I've been told that it's really good to have a fence in between the cows and the calves where they can still kind of interact with each other through the fence, but they're not really considered together. And then I've heard some people say it's better off to get that cow and calf out of each other's sight. So which do you feel works best?
Well, that's one of those personal preference things. I think you're right, Rob. The latest research has kind of leaned towards the fence line weeding, like you were just talking about, having the cows on one side of the fence and let the calves be on the other side of the fence, so at least they can still have a little bit of interaction. Old school way, I guess, was to go ahead and take separate them by a distance so that they couldn't necessarily see or smell or hear each other very easily. So, but that's going to be up to the farm whether they have enough room to do that or not.
Right.
But fence line weaning has certainly gained a lot of attention and is getting a lot of recommendations nowadays. So, as long as your fences are good enough to keep them separated, that's my only caveat on that.
Yeah. Now, when people are in the calving season, is it more people in the castration of the bull calves, or most of them still using the banding method, or do some of them, wait till the calf gets a little bit of age on them and then just castrate them?
Well, it's a lot of people like to use the bands early on. Pretty much as soon as a calf is up and walking around, a few days later you come in and do the banding on them.
Right.
It's safer to do that at that point than it is to try and do it later on. I hear it both ways. Again, that's a preference of the farmer, what they want to do and how they want to operate it. Our recommendation for bull calves, if you're not going to keep bull back to sell, then we certainly would rather see it castrated using one method that you're comfortable with and that you're going to get a good job done out of it. And that's my message on that is to make sure it's done the right way, whether it's with a band or if you use a scalpel and
Right.
use the regular castration method. But to do it, quickly as humanely as possible, and make sure that usually the older you let them get, the more pain is involved with that process.
Right.
So the younger ages works better if you're going to be doing that. Some people I know don't use castration as a tool. They sell their calves as bulls.
Well, that's what's going to be my next question. Is the price affected much, whether it's a bull calf or a steer calf?
That a lot of times that depends on supplies. We'd like to say that steers would be worth more than bulls, but usually if you check the prices from week to week from the sale barns, there's not much difference between them. And farmers will look at me and say, well, why should I do that if it's not going to gain me any more money? Because it's just
Right.
extra time and expense for me. But if it works for you, that's fine. But our recommendation is still to go ahead and castrate this, make steers, sell the steers, because on down the line, once you sell them off the farm as calves, bulls going into the feedlot just don't work. So somebody's going to have to bear that expense.
Right.
And, if you're selling a lot of calves, it's better to go ahead and build up your reputation of making sure that, okay, the buyer knows that my calves can go into his system, whether it's a backgrounding system or a stocker operation or eventually into the feedlot, and have an easy transition from coming off my farm going into that operation. We don't want to see them slide backwards on weight gains at any step on the production cycle.
Right.
If I don't castrate on my end while they're still with mama and still gaining good, if I wait and let somebody else do it, they're going to incur that expense, and the calf's going to stand still for a while and not grow. And like I said, the older the calf gets, the more of a trial it is for them to get over that process.
Right.
Uh,
So the earlier the better.
earlier the better is the message in that. Yes.
Right. Well, Paul, talking about cattle production, I was talking with someone not so awful long ago, and they was telling me that they do artificial insemination,
Yep.
and they give the brood cows a series of shots to bring them in to where when they breed, they will go ahead and breed pretty much the whole herd, and then they will use a cleanup bull for the ones that do not catch from the artificial insemination.
Right.
Now, and I was also told that depending on the age of the bull, it depends on how many cows that he can, more or less service and things.
Right.
And these are all very important things to have an efficient cattle production and herd, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's for beef cattle, having a good bull and not overworking him is very important. If you've got a young bull that's only 2 years old, 3 years old, we don't recommend over 15, 20 cows to go with him.
Right.
Because he'll just work himself and lose weight, and it doesn't turn out well that way. Mature bull, we say 25 to 30 cows per bull. You mentioned artificial insemination and estrus synchronization, so that you can breed them all at the same time. To use that, you can choose a bull that's got a lot of good growth genetics, if you will. We call it expected progeny difference. You can look at the genetic records on these bulls and kind of pick one to match what your goals are or what your cow herd might need. And let's say artificial insemination, if you got a good technician working with you, you can get conception rates upward to 70-75%.
Right.
And then, a lot of people will come back and put a bull with the cows after they've inseminated to get the rest of them bred. So, and usually I'll recommend, okay, if you say you got a herd of Angus cattle and you want to breed them artificially to an Angus bull, use something else for a cleanup.
And that way you'll
So
know,
you'll know
yes.
what your conception rates are. Otherwise, you're gonna be taking blood samples and doing DNA tests.
Right,
To
yeah.
figure
Good
all
idea,
that out.
yeah.
So I just kind of like to know who's doing what, with all that. So, but the idea is to make sure you get your cows bred every year, so that you get a calf every year, so that you're producing animals efficiently. If you get a cow that misses a year, well, if something happened and say it's on the farmer for that happening, give her another chance. But if she misses that second one, it's time for her to go down the road.
Yeah.
And
If she's not productive, yeah.
Most of the time, we'll say if she misses one calf, she should be called out of the herd.
Well, one thing that I've never been to the tested bull auction that takes place in Granville County, at the livestock center on Kennedy Mill Road. But basically, these bulls come from different farms,
Yep.
and they send them to the research station down in Butner.
Right.
And these bulls are fed, and they keep a record of how many pounds per day that they can gain. And they also do the scrotum measurements,
Right.
and they are all tested. And then all of these bulls are taken to the livestock arena and sold to farmers that are looking for a new bull for their farm.
Right.
And they have records with the bloodlines, and also that bull has been tested, because it is very possible to end up with a bull that may be sterile, correct?
Yes, it's very possible. Now the bull tests, they are, as you said, they keep track of how much feed they eat, how fast they gain, how much feed it takes to make a pound of gain on them. They also do a lot of other measurements, as you said. They do take scrotal circumference, they do hip heights, wither heights, body length, all sorts of different things, and they plug that all in. And of course, they have the pedigrees also. And not every bull that goes through the test goes to the sale.
Right, okay.
So there are a certain percentage that, for one reason or another, they either don't grow fast enough, they don't have efficient enough, they don't convert feed efficiently as they should, or they don't pass a breeding soundness exam, which, that's part of the scrotal circumference measurement.
Right.
And then they also take a semen sample and make sure that they have viable semen, so that they can actually do the job. And you're right, sometimes a bull just is sterile and won't perform for you. So that's important to a farmer to have a breeding soundness exam done on their bull every year.
Yeah.
Even.
Well, now, Paul, the cattle people that actually take a bull down to be put in this program, they are actually having to pay for this, bull to be taken to this place.
That's correct.
But I guess one reason of doing that is if you're someone that is producing prize bulls, you got to have the research to back up your statements.
That's right.
And in many cases, someone may decide that they need a bull, now, and they can't wait to that sale, so they start looking to different breeders that has, quality bulls, because, it's pretty much like whenever you're doing anything, whether it's for a hobby or a business, you want to do it the best way that you possibly can. And, you just don't want to take a shot in the dark and take a chance on a bull that you don't know the background
and
on.
if you're looking for a bull and you can't wait for the tested bull sale, then you certainly do want to look for reputable breeders that do participate in those kind of programs. And yeah, they do pay for, the testing fees on the bull, which, they pay for the veterinary care, they pay for the feed, they pay for the labor that goes into conducting these tests. But they get their money back on if they make the bull sale, because they think the sale has a minimum of $1,500 bid on it, and they
Really?
go up from there.
Right. Okay.
So they'll make their money back on that and cover their fees through it, unless they don't make the sale. And if they don't make the sale, then the farmer might want to look at his genetics and say, okay, maybe I need to go a different direction.
Right.
So it's very useful information, no matter what happens there for the farmers that do participate. But yeah, if say I'm looking for a bull and you've got one for sale, I'll ask you those questions. Okay, have you ever had any bulls tested at the site? What does his pedigree look like? What's the expected progeny difference on the pedigree? And and then I have to make the decision, is that going to match with my needs and my cow herd on that?
Yeah, well, it's a lot that goes into it, and I know very little about it, but what I know about it, I've heard people talking about it, and I've seen things, through different, you know, outlets of different media outlets, talking about things. But, the cattle industry is a huge, huge industry, and the cattle industry is helping feed America
Certainly.
and abroad.
Yeah,
So,
it is, and of course it's an international industry as well because we face competition from South America. We face competition from you know from Southeast Asia, from Africa. There's a lot of different breeds of cattle around the world, and there's a lot of different needs. And Australia, we face competition from them in different livestock breeds, cattle, sheep, and all that. So it's a global market for that. So we want to make sure our farmers are competitive and can provide
and compete, yeah, like
and
you say, B.
provide a good product
Yeah.
that we know is healthy for us. We know that the animals are treated well, because it doesn't do a farmer any good to mistreat his animals. He's going to lose money that way.
Yeah.
And anybody's trying to make a living doing something, you want to make sure what you're working with is in good shape and is taken care of properly and treated well.
That's right.
So.
All right, and we're going to get a word on for Sandling Golf Cars, and we'll be back in a few minutes with Mr. Paul Westfall of the Cooperative Extension Service. Sandling Golf Cars also has Wilmington Grills. Here's some more information. Sandling Golf Cars in Oxford announces 0% financing for 48 months on EasyGo. Call 919-693-4626 or 1-800-221-9267. Al, Hillary, and Will, there to serve your needs of golf cars, tow dollies, utility equipment, enclosed stock and dump trailers. If you're in need of a trailer, go see them at Sandling Golf Cars, 613 Lewis Street in Oxford. Open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. until 5:30, Saturdays 9 until 1. New and pre-owned golf cars by EasyGo and Club Car, along with XRTs, can be found at Sandling Golf Cars. Check out the Wilmington Grills in stock at Sandling Golf Cars. See Bradley and Dennis for repairs on all brands of golf cars and Trojan batteries. Call 919-693-4626 or toll free 1-800-221-9267. Sandling Golf Cars is located 613 Lewis Street in Oxford. Visit them in person or online at sandlinggolfcars.com. Remember 0% financing on EasyGo for 48 months at Sandling Golf Cars. On the Gardeners Corner program, Paul Westfall of the Cooperative Extension Service and myself, Rob Hall, we've been talking about cattle, and I made mention that Sandling Golf Cars have Wilmington Grills. Now, get you one of those Wilmington Grills, and then make your way out to T.G. Brooks Company and get you one of those hand-cut ribeyes, and it will be some kind of delicious on the grill. Let's take a trip down to T.G. Brooks Company. They are ready for your fall planting. Here's more information from T.G. Brooks Company.
Little by little, fall is starting to creep in, and now it's time to get those mums and pansies at T.G. Brooks Company. Also time for collards, cabbage, and other fall vegetables. T.G. Brooks has them. This is the best time of the year right now to get your yard off to the best start. Remember to kill those weeds in the lawn and get ready for fall seeding. T.G. Brooks Company has the lawn chemicals to do the job. This is the best time of the year, best time of all, to enrich and repair your lawn. T.G. Brooks Company has the new Top Choice Turf Grass Seed for greener and plusher lawns. Also available are rental lawn aerators and pull and walk behind pluggers and spreaders, bag and bulk mulches and bulk planting soil. They have your fertilizers and lime, too. They still have plenty of lawn sprinklers, water hose, and water hose fittings if you need those hose repaired. If you need yard tools, they're in abundance, plus wheelbarrows. Pick up a couple of nice rakes while you're there, fresh pine needles, and if you are the homeowner or if you're the professional landscaper, Both get the same kind of service, and they are set up to handle commercial accounts. They have Bartlett Animal Feeds. No matter what part of Person County or Durham County, it's worth the time to drive over to one source to handle your fall needs for lawn or flower garden. Your family will be smiling when you finish the day with a delicious hand-cut ribeye steak you bought at T.G. Brooks Company. And it's still warm enough for a bowl of homemade ice cream made from one of their ice cream freezers they have available. They've been around since 1936, and people have trusted T.G. Brooks Company for sound advice when it comes to lawn, garden, and home. They take pride in serving the homeowner, farmer, and those in construction. 411 Helena Mariah Road, right next door to Community Pharmacy in Timberlake. Come to T.G. Brooks Company, the store with more.
All righty, here we are back on the Gardener's Corner program, and we're just about out of time. Paul, any closing remarks?
Well, we talked about, some things for beef cattle, and we talked about getting lawns overseeded. And closing remark for me is just remember, a cow is the most efficient harvester of forage there is. So anything we can do to promote pasture growth and utilize that forage, we're better off for doing that. But till we get some rain, we don't need to put a lot of fertilizer on or do things like that. Don't put nitrogen on until you get a little bit of rain so that the grass can utilize it. But we're in good shape going into the fall. We just need a little bit of water, and everything will be real good, I think.
I agree with you. And if you would like more information about pasture management, just contact your local North Carolina Cooperative Extension office, and they are there to lend a hand, and they will do whatever they can to help you get growing and going in the right direction. Thanks goes out to T.G. Brooks Company, Sandling Golf Cars, and the Lloyd Granville Agricultural Heritage Association for being a sponsor on the Gardener's Corner program. And a real big, extra special thanks to Mr. Paul Westfall for coming out and sharing some information with us. On behalf of Paul, myself, Rob Hall, and WKRX and TV Channel 10, I want to wish you and yours a happy and safe weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next week for another edition of the Gardener's Corner program.